The Mirror's Gift. Chapter 1. The Weight of a Crown. 3 years had passed since the last petal fell, and love broke the curse. Belle stood at the grand window of what was once the Beast's castle, now simply their home, watching Adam tend to the gardens below. His human hands moved with the same gentle care he'd once shown as the Beast, coaxing roses to bloom in defiance of the approaching winter. The enchanted objects had long since returned to their human forms, but something unexpected had occurred in the months following their transformation. While Lumiere delighted in his chef duties and Mrs. Potts mothered everyone within reach, many of the castle's residents found themselves restless. After decades of being frozen in time, the world beyond the castle walls had moved on without them. Families they'd once known were gone, trades they'd mastered were obsolete, and the village that had once feared their master now celebrated him as a hero, but barely remembered them at all. Belle had noticed it first in Chip, now a boy of perhaps 8, who would stare longingly at the village children playing games he'd never learned. Then, in the wardrobe, Madame Armoire, who wept quietly when she realized her daughter had grown old and died during the curse years. Even Cogsworth struggled, his precise time-keeping skills less valued in their peaceful, unhurried life. My lady, Plumette appeared at Belle's shoulder, no longer a feather duster, but a graceful woman with silver-streaked hair. The mirror, it's glowing again. Belle's heart quickened. The enchantress's magic mirror had been quiet since the curse broke, showing only ordinary reflections. But recently, it had begun displaying strange visions, glimpses of other places, other times, other people trapped by loneliness or cruelty. Chapter 2. The Mirror's Secret. In the mirror's chamber, Belle and Adam found the glass shimmering with an otherworldly light. Within its depths, they saw a young woman in a tower, her hair gray before her time from isolation. In another vision, a man made of living stone sat alone in a garden, slowly turning to marble as bitterness consumed his heart. A third showed a child who couldn't speak, cursed to silence by a stepmother's jealous rage. "They're all trapped," Belle whispered, her hand finding Adam's. "Just like you were." Adam nodded grimly. "The enchantress, she didn't curse only me. There are others scattered across the kingdoms, each carrying their own burden." Mrs. Potts entered, wringing her hands. "Begging your pardon, but Chip heard voices from a mirror. He's quite upset, he is. Says the lady in the tower reminds him of his cousin Mary, who was always kind to him before the curse." That evening, as Belle researched in the castle's vast library, she discovered references to the enchantress scattered throughout ancient texts. She wasn't merely a sorceress dispensing punishment. She was a guardian of balance, appearing when cruelty threatened to poison the world. Her curses weren't just punishments. They were tests, opportunities for growth and redemption. But the text spoke of something else, the mirror's gift. When one soul learned to love and be loved in return, the mirror could become a bridge, allowing that love to reach other trapped hearts. Chapter 3. The First Journey. "Absolutely not," Adam said firmly when Belle proposed her plan. "I won't risk you. We don't know what dangers." "Adam." Belle took his face in her hands. "You taught me that real love means being brave enough to help others find what we found. And look around you. Our friends are fading here. They need purpose, adventure, the chance to be heroes in their own right." She gestured to where Lumiere was teaching Chip to fence with soup ladles, their laughter echoing through the hall. "They were heroes during your curse, even as objects. Now they need to be heroes as themselves." Adam's expression softened. He looked at Cogsworth, who was methodically organizing books that didn't need organizing, and at Plumette, who spent hours staring out windows at a world she barely remembered. "The mirror showed us that woman in the tower first," Belle continued. "Perhaps that's where we're meant to start." The next morning, a peculiar caravan set out from the castle. Belle and Adam rode together, while their friends traveled in ways that suited their talents. Mrs. Potts managing supplies with military precision, Lumiere entertaining everyone with songs, and Chip running alongside their horses with inexhaustible energy. The magic mirror, carefully wrapped and secured in a special wagon, would serve as their guide and their way home. Chapter 4. The Tower of Silence. Lady Cordelia had been alone for 17 years. Once, she had been the most sought-after young woman in the kingdom of Astoria, known for her wit and kindness. Then her father arranged her marriage to a cruel lord who saw her only as a way to claim her family's lands. On their wedding day, when she refused to speak the vows that would seal her fate, the Lord cursed her in his rage, not to silence, but to something worse. Every word she spoke would age her a year, until she would either submit to marriage or wither away. Now at 35, she looked 60, her hair silver and her hands gnarled, though her eyes still held the spark of the girl she'd been. She had retreated to her family's abandoned tower, surviving on what little she could grow and the occasional kindness of villagers who left food at her door. When Belle first called up to her, Cordelia almost didn't respond. Visitors had been rare over the years, and most came with false promises or cruel jokes. But something in Belle's voice, a genuine warmth, made her peer through the window. "I know about curses," Belle called, "and I know about breaking them. Please, let me help." What followed was the strangest conversation of Cordelia's life, conducted through a window 30 feet above ground. Belle spoke about love's power to transform, while Adam shared his own story of redemption. Gradually, other voices joined in, Mrs. Potts offering motherly comfort, Lumiere singing songs of hope, Chip suggesting games they could play. But I grow older with every word. Cordelia finally spoke, her voice like rustling leaves. "Soon there will be nothing left of me." "Then let's make every word count," Belle replied. "Tell us about the girl you were. Tell us about your dreams. Tell us about the love you've been saving in your heart all these years." Chapter 5. Breaking the Curse of Words. Over the following days, Belle and her friends worked to understand Cordelia's curse. Unlike Adam's transformation, this wasn't about learning to love another. It was about learning to value herself enough to speak her truth, regardless of the cost. Mrs. Potts proved invaluable, her maternal wisdom helping Cordelia reconnect with memories of her childhood. Cogsworth, with his love of precision, helped her find exactly the right words to express complex feelings without wasting any. And surprisingly, it was Chip who made the breakthrough. "You know what?" the boy said on their third day, sitting beneath Cordelia's window. "I was really little when I got cursed. I forgot what my voice sounded like. When I got changed back, I was scared to talk because it felt different. But Belle told me something. She said our voices matter not because of how they sound, but because of what we choose to say with them." That night, as the full moon rose, Cordelia made her choice. She began to speak, not the careful, rationed words she'd used for years, but a flood of everything she'd kept inside. She spoke of her dreams of traveling the world, of books she'd read in solitude, of flowers she'd grown and songs she'd hummed. She spoke of loneliness and fear, but also of resilience and hope. With each word, she did age, but something else happened too. The years of bitterness and isolation began to fall away, replaced by the radiant joy of someone finally truly free. When dawn broke, Cordelia stood in her doorway, not the young woman she'd been, but not the prematurely aged prisoner either. She looked exactly her age, with silver threading through brown hair and laugh lines around eyes that sparkled with renewed life. "I spent so many years afraid of growing old," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I forgot that growing old means I had the gift of growing at all." Chapter 6. The Fellowship Grows. Cordelia joined their quest, bringing knowledge of other cursed souls she'd heard whispered about in her years of solitude. The magic mirror began showing them more visions, and a pattern emerged. Each curse targeted a different aspect of human connection. Where Adam had struggled with loving others, Cordelia had lost the courage to express herself. The stone man they'd seen was learning to forgive, while the silent child needed to find her voice in a different way. As they traveled from kingdom to kingdom, their group grew. Some of the cursed chose to join their mission after being freed, while others returned to rebuild the lives they'd lost. But all were changed by the experience of being truly seen and helped without expectation of reward. The stone man, Sir Marcus, had been a knight so consumed with past failures that he'd literally hardened his heart. Belle and her friends helped him learn that true strength came from vulnerability and the courage to try again, even after failure. When his curse broke, the living stone became flesh, and he chose to remain with them, his gentle strength protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The silent child, Wren, had been cursed by fear itself. A stepmother's cruel words had convinced her that her voice would only bring harm. It was Chip who reached her, showing her that children's voices were meant to be heard, meant to ask questions and laugh, and sometimes even complain. When Wren finally spoke, it was to defend another child from bullies, her voice ringing clear and brave. Chapter 7. The True Magic. After 2 years of traveling, Belle stood once again before the magic mirror, but now it was surrounded by friends both old and new. The mirror no longer showed visions of the cursed. Instead, it reflected back the faces of all they'd helped, living free and full lives across the kingdoms. "I think I understand now," Belle said to Adam as they watched Chip teach Wren to read while Cordelia helped Mrs. Potts plan their next journey. The enchantress's magic was never really about punishment. It was about creating connections, forcing people to reach beyond themselves. Adam nodded. "And now we're doing the same thing, but by choice instead of compulsion." The mirror shimmered, and for a moment, Belle thought she saw a familiar figure in its depths, the enchantress herself, no longer stern and forbidding, but smiling with approval. Then the image faded, leaving only their own reflections, a found family of the once lost, the once cursed, the once alone. "Where to next?" asked Sir Marcus, consulting the map Cogsworth had carefully prepared. Belle looked around at their group, so different from the frightened, isolated people they'd once been. They had become something new together, a fellowship of healing, carrying love and hope to the forgotten corners of the world. "Wherever needed," she said. "After all, everyone deserves their happily ever after. Sometimes they just need help finding it." As they prepared for their next journey, Belle realized that this was the true magic the enchantress had left behind. Not the power to curse, but the power to connect, to heal, to transform isolation into community. And unlike the fairy tales that ended with happily ever after, their story would continue, one rescued heart at a time, for as long as there were people who needed to remember they weren't alone. The mirror's gift wasn't just the power to see other worlds. It was the wisdom to understand that all worlds were connected by the simple, revolutionary act of choosing to care for one another. And so Beauty and the Beast became Beauty and the Fellowship, and their tale became not one story, but 1,000 stories of love conquering isolation, hope defeating despair, and the magic that happens when people choose to be heroes for each other.